Good afternoon, I'm Chris Nachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Canadians are experiencing the end of an era as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced his resignation this morning. The announcement was held outside of his residence on the grounds of the Rideau Hall in Ottawa. Trudeau said he believes his resignation will result in less polarization in Parliament and instead shift the focus to serving Canadians. In his speech, Trudeau said Parliament has been paralyzed for months. He also met with Governor General Mary Simon this morning to request the prorogation of Parliament until March 24th. He also requested the President of the Liberal Party to begin the process to pick a new leader. Trudeau will remain Prime Minister until a new leader is determined. Trudeau also said he had hoped Chrystia Freeland would have stayed on as Deputy Prime Minister. Trudeau admitted the events of the last few months influenced his decision.
I am a fighter, and I am not someone who backs away from a fight, particularly when a fight is as important as this one is. But I have always been driven by my love for Canada, by my desire to serve Canadians, and by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election. And it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
Meanwhile, a man has died and 2 people have been arrested following a homicide investigation at a First Nation in Saskatchewan. Last Thursday at around 4:50 a.m., Battlefords RCMP received a report of an injured man in an undisclosed location. The man was later pronounced deceased by EMS. RCMP identified the man as 24-year-old Lyle Knight Jr. from Soto First Nation, and police deemed his death suspicious. Later, 20-year-old Brody Running Around and 23-year-old Malika Nabeksi are each charged with 1 count of first-degree murder. They made their first court appearance today at North Battleford Provincial Court. Saskatchewan RCMP Major Crimes continues their investigation this week. Saskatchewan RCMP are also asking the public's help for information involving a suspicious death in a First Nation north of Regina. On Thursday, January 2nd at around 8:15 a.m., Southie RCMP received a report of an injured female at a residence in Piapot First Nation. When police arrived, they found a deceased adult female and identified her as 30-year-old Melanie Asham Obi from the Pasqua First Nation. The woman's death is now considered suspicious, and Saskatchewan RCMP Major Crimes is now investigating. RCMP say there will be an increased police presence in Piapot for an undetermined amount of time, and so far believe there is no risk to the public. Anyone with information is asked to contact 310-RCMP or 7267 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. RCMP in New Brunswick is asking for the public's help to find a wanted man who was previously assaulted a peace officer. 42-year-old Robin Nicholas of Tobacco First Nation in New Brunswick is wanted on 2 warrants of arrest for multiple accounts of assault against a peace officer and resisting arrest. Nicholas is 5'4", 170 pounds. He has brown eyes and black hair. He was last seen wearing a gray hoodie with a blue front pocket, black sweatpants, and brown boots. He may also be carrying a pocket knife. If you see Nicholas, do not approach him and immediately call RCMP or police. It has now been almost 2 weeks since 50-year-old Orlando Okomesom went missing in Sturgeon Lake First Nation, a community about 30 kilometers northwest of Prince Albert. Family is asking anyone in the area who has ATVs, snowmobiles, or horses to help in the search. Prince Albert RCMP say Okomesom was last seen on Christmas Eve in the Sturgeon Lake First Nation. However, family on social media said Okomesom was last seen in an extremely vulnerable state, walking in a ditch just past the East Village in Sturgeon Lake on Christmas Day at around 2 p.m. Okomesom is approximately 5'9" tall and weighs 240 pounds. He has brown eyes, medium-length black hair, and wears glasses. However, police say he doesn't have his glasses with him. He was last seen wearing a blue wool jacket and running shoes. Anyone with information on Orlando's whereabouts is asked to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. 222-8477. A young baby from northern Manitoba was recently rushed to hospital following a respiratory illness from mold in her home. Excessive mold is a common issue among many First Nation homes across the country due to poor housing and overcrowding. CTV's Alex Karpa has more.
2-month-old Memory Cologne was taken to Winnipeg's Health Sciences Centre just before Christmas, where the family was told her blood became contaminated from the mold in her home.
It's really scary. I don't want any of my other kids to go through the same thing that she's been through.
House mold is a major issue in Castell's community of Puckatawagan in northern Manitoba. She says she has brought up the issue before, but nothing has been done to fix the worsening problem.
I was really angry. Scared if I lost my baby.
Pediatric respirologist Dr. Tom Kavesi says clean air is a major problem in Indigenous communities. He was part of a study that included 4 isolated First Nations communities in Northern Ontario and says these types of mold problems are often caused by poor ventilation.
Mold increases the amount of inflammation in your airways, and then you add a viral infection on top of it, and it's kind of like getting 2 hurricanes at the same time. And one of the important issues is we know that mold is closely related to inadequate housing in First Nations communities.
First Nations leaders are frustrated with the lack of action from both provincial and federal governments.
We have to have some kind of movement to correct this issue. It's something that can be fixed. It's that the political will is not there, and it's tragic that young children are now being affected.
Castell says she just wants to see change.
Really sad that my kids have to live like that.
Advocates continue to call on the federal government to build more homes and provide more funding to maintain those homes in First Nations communities, saying the health of First Nations children is at stake. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
An area of undeveloped land on the outskirts of Winnipeg has sparked some controversy over the holiday season. In recent years, the land was purchased by a Toronto company that wants to turn it into a residential area, but it's been used by the Indigenous community for sacred ceremonies for the past 4 decades. And just last year, there was the discovery of unmarked graves. The owner recently began cutting down trees, prompting some to take action. On top of this, last week, a judge granted an injunction against the group, ordering the land defenders to leave. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
This breaks my heart every time I come here.
So this is the boundary of where his land has been purchased, this line here.
It was the cutting of these trees that prompted some from Winnipeg's Indigenous community to set up a sacred fire and camp on a city road and main entrance to this private land that's owned by Tashel Development Group. This land defender was amongst those who started this camp with traditional ceremony on Boxing Day, saying she will stay here despite a recent court injunction asking for the removal.
I'm standing here today protecting a forest, not just a forest, our ancestors. I will continue to do this until justice is served.
It was a year ago this area known as Lemay Forest made headlines after discovery of an unmarked cemetery for a Catholic orphanage in the early 1900s. Advocates, including the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, were asking the city to hold off on allowing development on the private land to investigate. Over the summer, the city, province, and federal government offered to buy the land back from the owner, but he declined. He wants to turn the 23 acres into a residential area despite it not currently having any access to services. It's within the St. Norbert suburb of Winnipeg along the Red River, an area also claimed by the Métis. John Winthrop is a developer hired by the landowner who says despite the injunction, the camp continues to grow.
They're aware of the injunction and calling for more people to come down there for security of the site. We have absolutely lost any control or access to the property. They blocked us and denied us.
How many do we have here? 2, 4, 6. Okay.
But Morningstar woman who's been at camp since day one says while the road is blocked to traffic, people are free to come and go to the property.
I'm in my ceremony. If anybody wants to walk through, by all means, you're more than welcome to walk through. I'm on public property. I'm not doing anything wrong.
She's been welcoming visitors who've come to support with teachings of tobacco ties to offer along with prayers. Lemay Forest is where she found the Red Road. She says there are 4 sweat lodges where traditional knowledge keepers have been set up for about 4 decades. Without this space, she feels a lot of people will have nowhere to go for ceremony. City officials say a development permit was issued to the owner back in October to allow tree removal. However, his application to rezone the property was denied in September, and he's appealed. The city says it will go to the municipal board early this year. Until that happens, residents of St. Norbert, like Louise May, say the land should remain untouched.
I'm the one who put the truck here to stop the machinery. So I'm not leaving, and my truck is not leaving until I have assurances that not one more tree will be cut, until we can go through a full legal process.
While May isn't named on the injunction, she and others say they have legal representation and will be in court on January 6th. Meanwhile, Cedar says this is a good opportunity for truth and reconciliation efforts.
Might be a forest today, a pipeline tomorrow, a hydro dam. You will see us everywhere. We found our voices, some of us. We will never stop. We are Ogichita, we are Anishinaabe, and these are our lands.
Saying it's time to move from land acknowledgements to land back. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We have to take a short break, but when we return, we'll tell you about Marsha Ireland, a strong advocate for inclusivity and Indigenous rights. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This next story is about a unique, one-of-a-kind person who bridges both the deaf and hearing worlds together while tackling inclusivity, Indigenous rights, and revitalization in 4 different languages. APTN's Kim Sullivan introduces us to Marsha Ireland.
I thank you for allowing allowing me to talk with you.
She's a deaf Oneida woman, but also a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and an advocate for inclusivity. Marcia is also the Assembly of First Nations Accessibility Ambassador.
The 7th generation teachings of the Haudenosaunee peoples reminds us of the importance of building strong, supportive relationships with one another. They remind us that the decisions we make today can contribute to creating a sustainable and inclusive world for the next 7 generations.
It is with those generations in mind that for almost a decade now, Marcia and her husband Max have been helping to revitalize an Indigenous sign language. To be born deaf in a spoken world is alienating. Most of what a person learns, from their surroundings to concepts of who they are, is acquired through language.
One. All right.
At a young age, Marcia was sent to an oral school for the deaf, where lip reading and speech were the main methods of teaching. It took years before she was given a tool to communicate, American Sign Language. Yet, Marcia still felt like an outsider.
English and ASL really did not align with me. It really felt like such a disconnect. It didn't support my identity as a First Nations person. Yunko.
She thought that by advocating for ASL interpreters to be allowed into longhouses, she would finally connect with her Indigenous identity. That was not the case.
No one anticipated was that they would speak in Oneida, and the interpreters just put their hands down because they didn't understand Oneida. In ASL, we would say thank you.
Limited to American Sign Language, which is based on English, Marcia was, once again, excluded from the conversation. Marcia did not want any other members of the deaf community to experience the same thing, including her 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren, many of them also deaf. With her husband Max bringing together the deaf and hearing worlds, and with the help of an Oneida elder, Olive Elm, who translated English into Oneida, they created a sign language that truly represents their native roots.
Like in ASL, they would say the great law of peace, and they would have to fingerspell each word. But for me, this is the great law of peace. We're talking about the tree and it being rooted in the ground and the sky above it. And so this is the great law of peace.
Oneida Sign Language is deeply based in meaning and not into words.
So in ASL, you would do dog, but in OSL, we would use this. Truly reflective of the animal. And so we really looked at what does it mean? What's naturally there?
Marcia now uses this new voice, sense of pride, and identity to speak up.
I'm always going to try and engage with people because I think that we really have to come together as equals. However, I do come to the table quite often and say, but we forget about those who are deaf. You know, we say we want equality. We're not always remembering that we need equality and that we all haven't considered everyone here.
On access to
the role of AFN Accessibility Ambassador allows her to come to the table with a whole community of disability advocates backing her, including Okanagan Indian Band's Chief Byron Lewis, whose daughter lives with disabilities. He moved a resolution rejecting the Accessible Canada Act in order to advance distinct First Nations accessibility legislation.
You know, the motion and everything like that is sort of the tip of the iceberg because you know, this gives us an opportunity to, one, is to highlight the issue, 2, is put the support mechanisms in place, and the third one is actually start helping these people, not only the people with the disabilities, but the people that are actually supporting them, because all of them need that. It doesn't matter if it's a physical disability or one that's with mental disability.
Advocates are asking for sustainable funding and the recognition of First Nations' right to design design and deliver healthcare and disability services. Chief Lewis says this resolution is not solely focused on Indigenous deaf populations. It benefits everyone in the communities, helping them heal and reconnect in the way their ancestors did. Just like the efforts made by Marcia and Max, which are creating a way for future generations to engage with one another.
That's the beauty of it. It combines everything to everyone. And that's inclusion rather than exclusion.
Hearing our deaf, sharing in knowledge. Kim Sullivan, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Great story, Kim. Thank you. We now want to tell you about this week's web poll question. We asked, should chiefs be held to a higher standard? A majority of you had answered yes at 88%, with 7% saying no and 5% saying they were unsure. Next, we asked, would charging healthcare workers with a crime eliminate break cutting in hospitals? You voted, and 51% had voted yes, and 30% had voted no, and the rest saying they were unsure at 19%. And lastly, we asked, do you think 2025 will be less or more politically charged than 2024? And you think it will be more politically charged at 78%, and 11% said it would be the same amount, 7% said they were unsure, and 4% said less politically charged. Thank you all for those who took the time to vote. Check out aptnnews.ca for our next set of questions this week. Weather is up next, along with a story from the Great Down Under. We'll be right back. Starting on the East Coast, St. John's 2, Charlottetown -4. Nain 1, Nujuak -6. Val-d'Or -14, Quebec City -12. -9 in Toronto, Sault Ste. Marie -9. Sudbury -11, Wawa -13. -32 in Churchill, Puckatawagan -22. -24 in Gimli, Princess Harbour -18 in Sun. -16 in Regina, Saskatoon -18. -29 in Buffalo Narrows, Stony Rapids -38. Partly cloudy and high level at -19, Fort Chipewyan -18. minus 13 in Medicine Hat, Lethbridge 0. Tofino 9, Kamloops 1. Dees Lake minus 14, Smithers minus 1. Minus 22 in Old Crow, Dawson minus 20. Minus 10 in Watee, Wrigley minus 24. Minus 17 in Colville Lake, Inuvik minus 24. Minus 33 in Baker Lake, Chesterfield, same temperature minus 33. In Clyde River minus 29, Agulik minus 33. When the National Elon University in northeastern Taiwan launched a campus expansion project many years ago, more than 10,000 Kavalan artifacts were excavated from the project site, including glass tube beads and copper rings. Research later found that the campus was located on the site of the former Parwarrior community of the Kavalan. University has now opened its Indigenous Knowledge Research Center Kavalan office to conduct research related to the Indigenous people there. Our friends at Taiwan Indigenous Television has the story.
Community elders with prayer cups in hand say blessings for the official opening of National Elon University's Indigenous Knowledge Research Center Kavalan office. Many community members and leaders from Elon and Hualien traveled to attend the celebration, hoping that the office will help revitalize traditional Kavalan culture.
不管是生活语言文化以及技能等等的一个资料库会在这个地方建构出来。现在是资讯时代都可以有一个连结，里面都一定会查得到我们噶玛兰知识体系里面的内容。
An excavation in National Elon University during a campus expansion project resulted in the discovery of over 10,000 artifacts, including copper fragments, carp ornaments, and glass tube beads. The university has established exhibition rooms and culture corridors to help students become acquainted with the long history of the Kavalan people.
宜大也非常重视哈，大家如果有去过万宾厅，大家看到那个文化廊道，其实展示非常多噶玛兰的一些文化遗址哈。
Community elders say that National Elon University's campus was the site of the Parwarrior community of the Kavalan. The excavation of these artifacts helped many Kavalan people who had not yet received official indigenous status to feel more secure about their own identities.
在我们宜兰现今的这个曾经有这个非常发展非常有光荣历史的这个噶玛兰，包括可能对族人他未来身份上的这样的一个认同的时候，他们有机会再回到他们的自己的母体文化。
Kavalan community members also hope to reclaim their agency and subjectivity in future research into the artifacts, and that the research can become useful in their everyday lives.
过去的考古遗址的挖掘是比较传统的挖掘那个基本上他们就只是做研究了，然后发表了然后我们只是一个被发表的一个对象，然后那个考古遗址的东西出来事实上我们当代的噶玛兰族是可以运用的，甚至可以活在 这个现代社会可以使用。
The changes brought by colonialism prevented Kavalan culture from being passed down for many years. The discovery of Kavalan artifacts has rekindled the flame for Kavalan identity. The Kavalan people are now working to revitalize their culture, hoping to leave their mark once more on the plains of Elon.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Monday, January 6th. We're back again with more stories for your evening newscast. Make sure to join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho kwana. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again. Ekse.